This episode of the Rhythm Changes podcast is sponsored by 12th Street Sound, the production, recording, and mixing studio where you can get 10% off as a listener of this show when you reach out to Anthony Senarini at 12th Street via 12thstreet.ca/RCP. My roots with 12th Street go deep. I've recorded all of my personal music projects since 2019 there. You can too. So get going on your next music project today at 12thstreet.ca/RCP. That's 12thst.ca/RCP.
I'm always surprised when people say, I don't know how you can do it, how you can get in front of so many people, and
true.
I could never do it. I'm like, oh gosh, I could never not do
Never
it.
not, yeah. Hello. I'm your host, Will Chernoff, and welcome back to a monthly episode of the Rhythm Changes podcast. Thanks again for your great reaction to last month's episode on this new frequency, and we've got an all-new one coming up for you right here. Just wanted to mention my second album as an artist, Maybe Eventually by William Chernoff, is out now. Links to that in the description. All right, we've got somebody outside the typical jazz lane for you who performs and writes children's music. That's up next. Our guest today is a renowned, I would say, and others would agree, Canadian children's musician, singer-songwriter, and performer. He's perhaps best known for hosting Will's Jams on CBC, but he's released, we think, 12 albums because his 12th and latest album, Will et Sika, avec, tout, monde, is out now as of October 21st, 2022. So we're going to talk about that and how it came together, but also the other considerations that you get out of being an artist in this unique genre, because I think there's some stuff in there that applies to all of us. I find him to be a really fun guy. He plays with a lot of jazz musicians and a lot of mutual friends of mine personally, so it's a pleasure to have him here in New West. Please welcome to the Rhythm Changes podcast, Will Stroet from Will's Jams.
Hi, Will. It's great to be here. Very excited. I think we're going to have a good time.
Yeah, just two Wills hanging out in New West.
Will squared.
Yeah. Now, if I'm looking at a track on the new album, I mean, it's all in French, and it's a collection of relatively short songs with a big variety of grooves. And when I think of the track Danser comme moi, I think about that groove, and I'm thinking, wow, you had no business including a groove like that on a children's record. That is just way too much. It's like a new disco style groove or something like that. That one stuck out to me, you know.
Well, that of all the songs on that album, that one is the one I can probably take the least amount of credit for. Honestly.
Oh, really?
We had so Sika's brother produced most of the music for that particular song, and the hook was something that we came up with in the studio. Like that song, we knew when we wanted to do it. We had kind of this like action movement song that we wanted to try. We wanted it to be different, but it was not well developed before getting into the studio. And so our producer on the album helped us come up with the hook, which is Venez danser comme moi, and like that sort of chorus. And then we pretty much gave the song to Sika's brother, and he's the one that came up with all of that amazing, just everything, like the body of that song, so much of it. So
yeah, that one stood out as among all the different grooves that you included on the album. And it's not easy to write in this style, you know, like you've been doing it for quite a while, and I'm sure you've grown as a writer, but what do you have to think about when you write this kind of song? Because, you know, if I think about the music I make, a lot of it is improvised, a lot of the structure is very loose. And as an outsider, it seems like this might be the exact opposite. Like you might really have to lock in on some things to get something done efficiently in a short song, and to have it be simple enough to be understood by kids, obviously. Like what do you have to think about when you write this kind of music based on what you've learned?
Yeah, I'd say that I have a very, I definitely have a structure in mind when it comes to writing. There are a lot of considerations. You want to have a good chorus, a good hook. You want to think about what the kids are doing. Is it a song that has action, which most of my songs do? I find that those are the types of songs that kids really respond well to, especially in a live setting, but even now more so with music videos and those types of things as well. And in this last album, we had other considerations too. We really were trying to appeal to the education market and teachers and students teachers that are teaching French as a second language. Both Sika and myself learned French. For me, it was growing up. With Sika, it was a little bit later. And so we really used that experience, our own experience, as a way to help us come up with the sort of the form of the songs and the way we would write these songs. So we kept them short on purpose. I was always thinking about simplicity in vocabulary, but not so simple that it's not fun and interesting. Trying to have many different musical styles and feels. It's even singing in keys that are really conducive to kids' voices.
Oh, that's so funny, because I was going to geek out about keys. Because I was going to be like, well, a lot of your songs are in E, I felt like. But I was wondering if you really think about that, if you're like, oh, this key is the best because we're working with a limited vocal range of people who are not trained singers, right? So you got to think about stuff like that too.
Yeah, for sure. That's something that I've learned, over the years, because in the past I would always just write in my favorite keys.
Yeah.
As a guitar player, and just keys that I really enjoy singing in, but those keys are often not the best keys for kids to sing along. So this particular album is just another example where I've really tried to apply all of these things that I've learned over the years to make that experience the best possible for kids and for teachers especially.
Yeah. Tell me about collaborating with Sika. Tell me about Sika.
Sure. So Sika, her name's Jessica Holtby. She goes by Sika. Sika sings. And I met her during COVID just on Instagram, actually. I guess that's kind of how you and I met.
Yeah.
But it's funny, I'm the kind of person that I really like meeting people. It's probably
Me too.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things about this industry that
That's
I'm
what
in.
It's all about.
Yeah, I get to meet lots of people. I meet lots of new people every day, every week. But during COVID, that experience kind of shut down, and so we find new ways to connect with people, and through social media was one of those things. So I sort of found Sika on Instagram, and we were aware of each other because we were both, in this space of making music for kids. And then I remember her posting a couple things in French, and I realized, this is interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe this is someone, that might be worth collaborating with or something. And so, we got in touch and started talking, and I found out that she's actually a French university teacher. So she teaches at the University of Alberta. She teaches French there.
In Edmonton.
Yeah. And that really intrigued me as well. And the fact, of course, that she was sort of starting her career in children's music. And so I proposed to her that we just try writing a song over Zoom and just see how it goes.
Okay.
And with that in mind, I was thinking, okay, let's try and write stuff that would be really good for educators, because that's something that we're both educators, really.
You know what is needed there. You have enough experience to know what will work.
Well, and from my experience, when I used to teach music at a French immersion school, I always found that there was a real limitation of resources for teachers who are teaching French as a second language. There's a lot of French music out there, but a lot of it, in my opinion, is not very accessible for kids who aren't francophone. So kids who are learning it as a second language. So
it's too hard linguistically?
Yeah, a lot of it's too hard, too fast. There's a lot of slang, I find often. A lot of the music that gets used is like old folk music or Quebecois folk music.
Also, like the reference doesn't hit in the same way that it would for people who are native francophones. Yeah,
absolutely. So this was something that I had in mind when Sika and I started working together. So anyway, we set up a time. We got on Zoom, and almost immediately we found that we had a really good chemistry working together for writing and writing songs. So after writing our first song, I said, let's do this again. This was great. I'd love to do this again. She's like, yeah, it sounds great. And so 2 weeks later, we got back online and we wrote another song. And we found basically we'd get on and every session we'd write another song. And so after a number of months, we had something like, 15 songs or maybe more. And that was where I realized we got to do something with this. These are really great resources that'd be great for teachers and fun for kids. and so from that point, we looked for ways to get an album funded. We had some support from Creative BC, which is fantastic to get that album recorded, and the rest is history. Then we got together. Sika flew out to Vancouver, and we recorded here, and now it's out. So
where did you record?
We recorded. This is actually a new producer, new studio for me. We recorded at Echo Plant Studios.
Oh, nice.
In Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam, I guess. And we had a great experience there. We had actually Alana Worsley was the producer.
Nice.
And usually Ryan does most of the production there. But I thought this was kind of another neat connection. Alana is actually an elementary school music teacher. As well.
Go.
So it seemed like this great, some great potential, and it worked out really, really well because she did have good insights into the way teachers could use songs, and there were other things as well that I really enjoyed about working with her in that space. And the engineer we had was really great too. His name's David Zier, and he's does a lot of work in that studio.
Nice.
So, yeah.
And I think when we were chatting, you said that you haven't had the chance yet, although it's coming down the pipe pretty quickly, to perform with Sika live, right?
That's right. Yeah, we haven't. We've never actually done a show together, but I'm really looking forward to it. We do have a couple things booked. We're going to be performing at Festival du Bois.
Yeah.
In I believe it's in March.
It's usually early March or late February. Yeah.
So I think that's March, and then we're also going to be performing and sort of debuting not only the French music, but we have English versions coming next year, and we'll be debuting some of that along with the French music at the Vancouver International Children's Festival.
Very nice.
This coming spring. So yeah. There are more things in the works, but that's all that's confirmed so far.
Yeah. That said, I did hear you live holding down a children's stage all day at an outdoor street festival in New West this summer. That's the first time I actually got to hear you and see you perform in person. So that was a lot of fun for me, but I know it was a hectic day for you. So how was that?
It was great. I mean, anytime I'm on stage, I mean, I'm in front of a microphone right now, and this is honestly, it's like my favorite place to be, whether it's on stage or whatever. I just, it's always a great experience. It was a busy day because I was emceeing the stage. This was at the BC Recovery Day event in New Westminster back in September. And, but yeah, the show was super fun. I got to get on stage with one of my idols, Fred Penner.
You came out in his set, and did he come out in yours too?
He didn't. No, he was too busy selling merch.
Yes, that's right, because he got mobbed by everybody.
Mobbed.
But you came out during his set.
That's right. Yeah. I came out at the end of his set. We did. I guess what did we do? The Cat Came Back. Of course, we did The Cat Came Back together with some other guests as well. And that was a great event. It was really, really fun. I don't know. I find now that I'm back performing in front of audiences, like real live performances again, I can't wipe the smile off my face. I'm so happy to be doing it again. I'm so happy to be in front of audiences, and I'll never take that for granted again.
Yeah.
After not being able to do it for 2 years. So
love it. Yeah. I thought it was the summer. It's funny because we had such the weather coming through into September. It was still like super hot and super sunny, and we were out there in early September, and it still felt like
technically
summer.
Still summer, so. I suppose.
by the equinox.
That's right.
You're still in there.
Yeah.
Now you hire a lot of my friends to perform on some of your gigs. I'm thinking especially of Chad Galfin and Madeline Elkins, and you brought Madeline in as a bass player, known to me and to many as a guitarist. So you recently performed in Yukon a bit with her, right?
That's right. We just finished a tour in the Yukon. We got to play in many different towns, communities up there in their schools. And that was the first time Maddie had played in my band, and it was great. It's not uncommon for me to have guitar players play bass in my band. And like my main bass player is Elliot Langford, and he is a guitar player first and foremost, but also a great bass player. And I don't know. I find that it works out just fine. Like especially in a small 3-piece you can kind of give the bass player a lot more room to even play some lead and that kind of thing. So she fit in really nicely in that regard. And
because you usually have a small band of you playing guitars and fronting the band, and then you have one bassist and one drummer.
That's
There's
right.
background vocals going on, and that's it.
That's right. Yeah. We're a 3-piece. My regular band is Elliot and Kevin Romaine on drums, and the two of them have been playing with me relatively consistently for about 12 years. So it's quite an incredible run. And of course, their careers have taken them in other directions. So I do often find myself bringing in other people like Chad or Maddie, or the list goes on and on. It's a long list. There's a lot of people. And even now I'm finding myself assembling different bands for my upcoming tours. I've got all kinds of different configurations in the next few months. So
yeah. I always find it particularly amusing, and I've brought it up to some of my friends in the lead up to this, that you, as your long-standing drummer, you have like one of the most esteemed free jazz and improvising drummers in Vancouver as like your drummer for your act. I think that's pretty great.
Yeah, Kevin's great. I love having him in the band, and he brings some of that kind of free jazz into the show, not only in his playing but in his performance, which I've never really talked to him about this either, but he's always up for improvising in terms of, the flow of the show, the my sort of dialogue in the show. And there are certain moments in our performance where, Kevin does things that none of the other drummers, he takes things in all kinds of incredible directions. We have one song, En haut, en bas, which I've been performing. My mom actually wrote this song when she was a French immersion kindergarten teacher, music teacher, and it's extremely popular still to this day, and it's always a part of my school show. And when we do that song, there's a moment where, like right before we do it at the fastest speed, where I ask Elliot if he's ready, and he's ready, and I ask Kevin if he's ready, and Kevin says, "Oh no, I'm not ready yet," and he'll stretch and he'll start doing some exercises or whatever, make sure he's warm, and lately he started doing one push-up like right in front of everyone. He gets down and does one super slow push-up, and we all get going, Kevin, and then he gets all the way up and he's ready to go, and the crowd the audience is just going crazy. They love it, And one more story on that, because we did a gig actually in New Westminster for Canada Day. It was like during COVID. It was one of the few live gigs that I had in that time. No, it was Queen's Park, I guess. I think we were actually in the baseball. We were in the baseball.
Oh wow, the stadium
kind of thing, and we were performing sort of on the edge of it, and we did that song. And when I asked Kevin if he was ready, he put up one finger. He said, "Oh, just wait." And he took off and he ran all 4 bases of the baseball diamond. The whole audience was just watching like, what is going on? And Elliot and I were kind of like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And he finally rounded all the bases and came back and he's like, all right, I'm ready. It was just, it was amazing. It was so cool. But so it's neat. I really like performing with my regular band. I love performing with new people. I find it's really neat to hear what other people bring to my songs. It keeps my songs fresh too, for me. Songs that I've played hundreds or thousands of times. So yeah, it's a cool experience. I really like it.
Yeah. Shout out to 2 more of my good friends, 2 drummers, Jamie Lee and Ben Kelly, who have both played with you.
They have, yeah. I had Jamie Lee was on a tour last spring with us in northern BC, and that was a lot of fun. And Ben Kelly's done a few with me over the years, although it's been a while. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, those show stories, they're great. I mean, I think about it because I saw you do, this must be a song that you've done a lot too, where you get the kids to form a train and walk around. I bet you've probably got some stories about how that
I do. Probably my favorite. So I have a song called Chugga Chew, and it's a song about trains. I wrote it when I was right in the thick of the sort of CBC TV series, and at that time, a lot of my songwriting, I was really thinking about the visual representation and what the song, not only what it sounds like, but what it would look like in a video. And so I highly recommend you check out the music video for Chugga to Chew. It's a really good one. But yeah, so for the live performance, I always get the kids to make a train, and they can, if it's in a park, they go all over the park. If it's in a theater, sometimes they're up and down the aisles. And I think my favorite memory of that song, well, sometimes it would get a bit out of hand, but we did some touring in China, and one of the shows there, like, we were playing gigantic theaters there.
Yeah.
Huge venues, over 1,000 people in the audience. And so when you start a train in a country where you don't, the communication is a little bit, there's definitely a communication gap. But you get that train started, and I don't know, I found the kids in China were just so amped and excited to kind of get out of their comfort zone. And but a lot of the adults were really uncomfortable with it. And certainly the theater staff, like when I suggested that these kids make a train and start,
because you have to ask, like, beforehand, like, I'm sure.
Well, yeah. I should. I don't always, but I mean, anyway, so one of these trains, it was going up the aisles of the theater and back down and in front, and the kids were having a great time, and there were maybe a few derailments, but gosh, I remember just looking at my band and being like, wow, this is a crazy train.
Train has left the station.
This is a crazy train. As Ozzy Osbourne would say, this is a crazy train.
Going off the rails. The reason why I thought, you have to ask, is because, I mean, I had the opportunity to tour China as well as part of a very large company. Not as extensively as you. I only did it once, and I only went to 5 or 6 cities and did, I think, 6 performances. And they were in large venues as well. And there were a lot of people on stage. It's almost like a variety show format. And it was just very buttoned down. Like, it was very procedural how it was. So the idea that you could improvise something like that in your shows would be a phenomenal achievement. Like, if you just, if that's what you just did and you just pulled that off in one of those venues, I'd be hugely impressed,
Yeah, it was, well, again, like I said, the kids were definitely so excited. I mean, the response from the kids from pretty much all those shows in China was amazing. And a lot of the time, the adults were kind of like, sit down. And I'm like, stand up, dance, and yeah, I want kids to have fun, and I think that it's not something that, I would say in China, a lot of those kids get that kind of freedom to just dance and jump around and enjoy music, and music that's for them, So those tours were really special. I hope I get to do it again sometime. I don't think it'll be anytime soon, but we'll see. Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah, that's a big one. Can I ask you some things about how you got to this point over however many albums it's been, and go into your background a little bit and see kind of how this came together? Because there's musicians who will listen, and there's some things that I'm curious about to see how much of maybe what is my experience right now, how much of that you had as well,
Ooh, okay.
Like, one thing I'm thinking is, like, did you ever have a period in your career where you were a side person, or where you were playing in other people's bands, or what happened on the way to it becoming your thing and to you stepping out as a leader?
Wow, that's a good question. I guess, I mean, if we go way back, I mean, I started playing music. I played the violin as a kid, and then I sort of gave that up in exchange for the guitar as a teenager. And I had a teacher at that time who was incredibly supportive and definitely helped me sort of push me out of my comfort zone, which I think gave me a lot of confidence in playing music and just feeling comfortable on stage. I mean, the specific example, so my teacher at the time his name was Rob Montgomery, and he's a blues guitar player.
He might be a reader of rhythm changes. I'll have to go check that out. I don't know if he listens to the show, but I'll see about that.
Well, I'll give him the link so he can have a listen anyway. But I grew up across the street from Robbie, and when I was a teenager, he started teaching me guitar, and I loved our lessons. He is an incredibly enthusiastic teacher, and very, very supportive. Like, he makes you feel like you're doing an amazing job, right? And so he would bring me to the Yale Hotel jam sessions. And this is where I really gained a lot of confidence, I think, as a performer. I mean, I'd been performing as a young child, so I was always comfortable being on stage.
What were you doing? Like, was this in the theater, like plays or music, or
as a kid?
When you were performing as a kid, what were you doing?
Sure. I mean, sometimes it was with, usually it was with my violin, I suppose.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and it was not, the singing was never something I really did on stage, but I grew up in a household where we were always singing. Like my mom was always singing, and we were always singing in the car. We were always making up songs. Like all of these things are very formative parts of my development as the musician that I am now, I suppose.
Yeah. So you had the performer's instinct. Kind of, you were growing up with that kind of in mind.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, I think it's in my genetics too, because I I really thrive in that situation.
Nature and nurture. You have both.
Yeah, for sure. When I'm performing, it's definitely my comfort zone. I really, really love it. I'm always surprised when people say, "I don't know how you can do it. How you can get in front of so many people." And I could never do it. I'm like, oh gosh, I could never not do it.
Yeah. So he brought you to the Yale.
Okay, yeah, so he would bring me to the Yale Hotel, and his band at the time, they were called Incognito. I think there's still a version of Incognito that performs around town. And his band hosted the Saturday afternoon jam at the Yale Hotel. And the first time that I went, I believe I was 16 years old or something, and we drove down together, and he said to me, "Okay, Will, just hold on to your guitar, walk right through the front door with me, pretend you belong, and we'll just get you in there, and just walk, just keep your head up and walk through the front door. We'll get you on stage and whatever." And so I was, 16 years old. I was pretty terrified, I suppose, but it was those types of experiences that just you get thrown into those experiences, and that's where huge growth can happen. And I ended up going to that jam session every week for probably about a year and a half. And I would get up on stage with people that were, 3 times as old as I was, or whatever, twice as old, and people that are very comfortable in that situation. And I would do my best, and some weeks I'd feel better about it than others, but I'd keep trying, and it was just a really great experience at that time to be doing that. And I had a beard then, so I felt like I could still kind of walk through the door and pull it off.
I leveraged that as well in my teens.
But yeah, so that was an amazing experience, and very sort of formative in terms of my experience of performing music. But then I kind of put music aside. I played a bit. I had a band in university for the first couple of years, but then I pretty much stopped playing music for quite a few years when I was finishing university. And I only came back to it really when I went back to UBC to get my education degree. And it was there that I had sort of this aha moment where I realized the power of music to teach other things, like not just about teaching music. And I think that is probably one of the most important kind of philosophies that surround my work now, is this idea that music can be such a powerful tool in teaching pretty much anything. I mean, you can learn so much through music as a vehicle and a tool. And I just love that. I just love it. You can see it. You can see the way that kids are learning at my shows or whatever. They're learning. They don't realize they're learning. They're having too much fun, but they're learning. So
yeah, music is uniquely good at that. You could say, right? And like if you think about the album tracks, right? Like you've got like an alphabet song, you've got Days of the Week song, and then you've got other things like the kind of list song thing is a funny thing. Like you've got the On fait un pique-nique song where you like list off a bunch of things so there's all these different things you can include that you want to introduce people to if the kids are listening.
For sure. I mean,
they'll learn it. Yeah.
Again, this new album, I feel like we've taken everything that I've learned over the years and tried to apply it to this album. So things like the list song, so On fait un pique-nique it's basically a song about food. It's about and building vocabulary around food, and you kind of keep adding to it like a 12 Days of Christmas style kind of song. And it's the kind of song where a teacher could then take that and they could start adding any foods that they want, and it can become a whole classroom activity, and the kids brainstorm, and then you create your own version, and it could be performed in an assembly or whatever. Like, all of these songs have that kind of potential, that there's songs with actions, a lot of songs where teachers could take the song and incorporate their own ideas or the kids' ideas and just leverage it in that way. So
yeah,
tons and tons of learning potential in these new songs. I'm really excited about it, and just getting it out to teachers. That's what I'm doing right now. So
yeah, I want to get into something here. I'm not going to hang you out to dry on this because I have my own opinion about it too, and it's kind of a funny question. But we talked about this VC Recovery Day stage where you emceed the stage all day, and there were different children's performers, including somebody like Fred Penner, right, who've had really long careers. And again, I'll chime in with what I think my view of this is at the end, but I'm curious what you would say. Now that you have this body of work, how would you describe what is different about your act and your body of work versus other performers who are in this milieu with you?
Whoa. Well, I would say, I think I've listened to a lot of children's music. There's a lot of great music coming out now for kids, tons. Probably this year, almost everyone I know in the space has put out a record, and
I will say too that my assumption going in is that there is an answer to this question. Like the success that you have had to me demonstrates that there is, that there are things that can be identified here that are different about you, because you don't get to where you are without there being something there.
I think for myself, again, none of these things are 100% unique, but maybe it's like the combination of these things.
Yeah.
For myself, the big things that have allowed me to kind of thrive in this career, I think number one is the fact that I'm bilingual. That's created all kinds of amazing opportunities, and I really like leaning into that. Even when I'm doing shows for an English-speaking audience, I really love throwing in some French. I feel like there's nothing to lose. It's a great opportunity, and it's opened a lot of other doors as well. I think the way that I relate to kids, I think, is probably my best asset in this world. I'm so comfortable speaking to kids, and they respond to me. I know how to have a conversation with a kid. You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of adults don't really know how to engage kids in ways that just make the kids feel comfortable and that they're having a good time. And so I think that's a big part of it. And in terms of like the styles of music that I enjoy playing, I think that a lot of those are really conducive to getting the response from my audience that's super enthusiastic and engaged. I play a lot of sort of rock and roll and folk and country and blues and, various different styles. And I really like the energy that affords my show, and I think the kids respond really well to that. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but those are some of the factors, I suppose.
I think we're going in the same direction here. Yeah, I think of it as like, it's not any individual thing that is the thing that differentiates you, but it's like a skill stack, right? And depending on what's in that skill stack, that's going to be a unique combination of things, like you were saying. So that's where the difference shines through, is once you start adding up a bunch of the distinguishing things that you have, right?
I suppose another thing is, my background in education too, and the fact that, I'm a certified teacher. I actually taught in schools for a number of years, and I think that gives you a lot of insight into that particular part of the kind of like children's market, that education side. And I also think the fact that I'm a dad is a huge, like being a parent is a huge asset in terms of understanding your audience. And not everyone in kids music are parents, and some of them are still amazing, but it is I think that for myself, I think that that's a huge part of it.
Do you feel like you unlocked a different level of understanding of your craft once you became a father versus before?
I think so, definitely. And I also recognize over the years the incredible amount of inspiration from my kids and from my kids' friends. A lot of my inspiration before that came from my students.
Right.
I also think I'm really young at heart. Like, I'm really interested in
I think
things
you are too.
that kids are interested in. I love comic books, and I like, whatever. That's a lot of stuff that makes me relatable to my.
Yeah. My answer was going to be that I think it comes from your band and your arrangements and the delivery of your arrangements just as much as those other things. I think when you add that into the skill stack, I think that's what differentiates it, because I think if you just put a different songwriting lens on top of your band, like, it could be a totally fine indie rock band, it could be a totally fine blues band, like, all the ingredients are there. It just so happens that you are adapting, arranging, and presenting it as an educational thing, as children's music, but all the ingredients are there that it could be a very successful band just playing festivals and gigs, right? Like, the arrangement is of that level, right? And maybe not everybody prioritizes that all the time. Like, a lot of the other performers in the space will have that for sure, but I think it comes naturally to you in a certain way that sets it apart. And it's probably because I wouldn't have called that you came up playing at the Yale Blues Jam, but there must be something there,
Well, I think that's really interesting because, I generally speaking, I feel like the musicians I play with are always better musicians than me. Like, I'm always the
worst player in the room.
Yeah,
you always want that. I agree.
Yeah, I'm always kind of the weakest musician in the group. I mean, I recognize that I have, certain skills or whatever, but it's amazing to be able to leverage, like, really great players and people who play differently than other people, and like we were saying earlier, that just bringing new people in and out of the mix, and it just keeps it really interesting and fun. And that's one thing I always emphasize with people when they play in my band and when they're about to do their first gigs with me. I always remind them, like, okay, number one, don't forget to smile. Like, let's have fun. Feel free to improvise, or, if you have an idea, like, give it a try. There's room in these songs for musicians to have some fun and try some different things. So that's one thing with Chad. I always have to remind him to smile,
If he doesn't listen to this already, I'm going to tell him about that.
He knows. But he's not the only one. A lot of people, when they're playing, you're not, you don't think about that. But with this audience, you do have to think about it.
That's so funny, especially with him, because I've known him for 10 years or so now. And I mean, I definitely regard him as a more polished and practiced and experienced bass player than myself at this point. But I think if you traced us and you watched us kind of as peers, I think I'm kind of known for being a bass player who smiles profusely on stage. And I got, back when I was touring in a band, I got a lot of feedback on that. And I think Chad would be considered the opposite of that by most people's standards. But
yeah. That's funny.
He makes it work.
It makes me think of, I don't know if you know Max Lee, the drummer, Max Lee.
I've heard him perform live. Yeah, I've never met him, but
yeah. But he's the same thing. He's like this, got the biggest smile on his face. That he is absolutely loving what he's doing. And he's played with me he actually came with me and Chad to China on that last trip.
Yeah.
And he's like, in terms of the smile, it's like over the top and just amazing. And I love it. You look over at him playing, and he's just like, yeah, it's amazing. It's really cool. Fun.
Something you learn when you're a teacher, and that you could also learn if you're in the theater world, is just the sheer amount of, it's like you have to amplify your face and all your movements, like, more than you would ever think. And I noticed that because, I mean, I worked with North Shore Celtic Ensemble a little bit, and so I was leading youth performing groups, not necessarily as a teacher directly, and I'm not really a natural teacher, but I did get to witness this thing where if you're a student performer, you can feel like you're working really hard to emote, and you can feel like you're smiling and you're moving a lot, but you're actually not, like, not from the vantage point of the audience, right? Like, you have to amplify what you're doing for it to have any chance of coming across way out there.
I think that's why my face is so wrinkly now.
I have that to look forward to. That's what you're saying. Hey?
Well, my kids tease me, because I got pretty deep set wrinkles, but I say, I'm smiling all the time. I'm very expressive. When I do my show, I have extremely active eyebrows. I mean, even you watch my music videos, like from the CBC Kids, all the Wheels Jams videos, and some of those videos, it was only my head performing. Like there's a number of them where we took my head
really tight.
Well, we took my head right off and stuck it on a puppet. Like some of them, they're like cutouts, and there's a few songs like that. And there's one song, my song Trikers, where they took my head off, and my body double for that song riding the trike is a 9-year-old girl, but it's just my head. And so my performance is only my face. That's all I have to work with. And so, yeah, you really do have to be very expressive.
I think that would be terrifying for a lot of performers if they knew that could happen to them. They'd be like, how do I get the most out of my face as a performer? Like that's tough. That's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. But again, for some people, I guess it comes kind of naturally. And so, but anyway, it's something I always remind the people I'm playing with. Like, smile. There's 500 kids out there looking at you. They want to know you're having a good time.
Your run with CBC now being a past experience, what sticks with you? How do you look back on that?
Well, I mean, there's really all kinds of things to say about that whole experience. I don't honestly know where to start. It was so amazing. So Kim and I, my partner Kim, she's my wife and my business partner, my manager, my agent, and the two of us, we were producing music videos with our friends. Their names are Cam and Kat, and their company is Turtlebox Productions. And they're like a husband-wife team, and my wife and I are the same. And we got together because we wanted to create something that we could pitch to television, to CBC Kids. And so we started creating videos, and then Kim and I went to the Banff Media Festival. I can't remember what year it would have been, like 2012 or something like that, or 2011 or something. I don't know. But we went, and we had these videos, and we shared them. We pitched them to the head of CBC Kids at the time. Her name was Kim Wilson. And she just loved these videos, and the opportunity, she was like, almost immediately, she said, these are great. I really want to get these on CBC Kids. Like, Kim and I couldn't believe it. It was like a miracle, to have this opportunity. And so right from the start, it was so exciting. It was such an exciting thing. And the first group of videos we self-produced with Cam and Kat from Turtlebox Productions. And then CBC came on, they licensed those videos and came on and helped basically the funding of the production of another 18 videos. And then those all went in rotation, daily rotation, for like almost 7 years.
But did you still do all the production work, or did they have people who produced it with you, and did they take on the workload directly, or did they just fund you?
They just funded us, which was really great.
So you like that? Yeah.
Oh,
you
yeah.
got to keep doing it your way.
That's right. They gave us a lot of freedom. I mean, they had to kind of sign off on everything when we went to deliver, and they had to sign off on the scripts and concepts and all that. But Cam and Kat really took the driver's seat in terms of the production, because the video production, that was their expertise. And so we basically self-produced all that content with Cam and Kat for CBC Kids, and it was amazing. Like, we had just real television production budgets and opportunities to create incredible videos. Like, I'll never have the chance to make content like that again. I just don't think it'll be possible. So it's pretty cool to have those videos. Like, they're still things, they're still part of what I am, or you can find them on YouTube or whatever. It's a pretty amazing thing. But I don't know, some of the opportunities were just even performing at CBC Kids Days in Toronto. Like, we'd go there every year and do shows with all their other performers and acts and shows, and those types of experiences were really fantastic, really, really amazing. So I'm just so grateful to have had that opportunity. It's really.
Yeah. And Kim, or you and Kim, are working on this new thing called Arts IQ.
Yes.
How much can you say about that?
I can say a lot. Arts IQ is it's now live. It's up. It's a site that it's really Kim. This is my wife's company, and it's an opportunity for artists to create content that can live online and be purchased or licensed by teachers or schools or districts to bring those art forms into their classrooms or into their schools to support their learning. So my particular project with Arts IQ is around this album with Sika, the Sika, avec, tout, monde, and we've created music videos, so lyric videos for every song, for 15 songs. They exist exclusively on Arts IQ. So if teachers want to access them, it's like an annual licensing fee. And we've created printable worksheets to go with every song and every theme. There's the MP3 downloads of the songs plus instrumental versions. So if teachers want to perform those songs in a school assembly or for parents, they can have a version that doesn't have our vocals and it can just focus on the kids singing. So I mean, there's a lot there. And Kim's other artists have created stuff. A lot of the content that's on there right now is virtual content that her artists had created during COVID.
Because Kim has like an artist management aspect to
yeah,
business
well, it's more
as
of an agency.
More
of an agency.
Booking agency.
Yeah, she does manage some of her artists, but not officially. Like,
yeah.
some need a little bit more support, and Kim's amazing at that. Like, if she believes in you as an artist, she goes above and beyond to help you find success.
And that's called Pebble Star Artists, right?
Pebble Star Artists. So so our company that I have with Kim is Pebble Star Productions, and that's kind of like the mothership. But Kim also has Pebble Star Artists, which is the agency, and now Arts IQ, which is like this virtual arts integrated, learning site where teachers can find First Nations storytelling or Bollywood dance modules or Sika, French teaching resources, or I mean, there's all kinds of things. It's an amazing website, and I think it's just the start. There's just so much potential for that site. I'm really excited about it. I believe in it. I believe in what she's doing. I think it's and I just want teachers to see all the potential and how much value they can get out of the content there.
Yeah. I've worked with a lot of people who had a really intense, who are a generation older than me, who had a really intense performing phase to their careers, and then eventually took an off-ramp and innovated and did stuff like this to kind of transition out of that. Is that what you're doing here or not yet?
No, it's not what I'm doing. I think it's maybe what Kim thinks I'm doing. She likes having me home because I do most of the cooking and stuff, and her businesses are booming. She's so busy. And yes, I don't intend to tour and perform at the same level that I was. Pre-COVID, I was doing about 180 to 200 shows a year across Canada, and then with those tours in China as well. So it was a lot. It was amazing. I love touring. I love performing. I'm going to keep doing it, but I would be very happy to do like 100 to 120 shows a year as opposed to 180 or 200. And then you can pick and choose a little bit more. And
yeah, because you got to do that at some point in your career. Like, I never even really approached that. But like, if I stayed in my band, we could have approached that, right? Like, at some point, it's like that's on the agenda for you as a performer, if that's kind of the world that we're living in. But it's like, once you're at a stage like where you're at right now, like, frankly, you can dial it in. If you really pay attention to it, you can dial it in. And from a business standpoint, you could probably make the same revenue from those 100 shows, like once you figure out what they are and how to get the most out of each one of them, right? So it's funny, like, eventually you realize how much performing that is to play like 150 or 200 times, and then you focus it in.
Yeah. It was to be totally honest with you, it was a little bit much, and I was probably, I would say, hitting burnout for touring pre-COVID. And so in that respect, this sort of COVID shutdown was almost like a lifesaver and a bit of a career saver, I suppose, because it allowed me to just get healthy again and feel really good and then get excited about performing and touring again. So I'm very happy where I am now. I feel great. I'm super excited about the tours that are coming. There's some pretty awesome performances coming in the next year that I'm very excited about, and yeah, I think it's going to be a great year coming up.
Yeah. I wanted to mention one more place that is something that we've talked about before, because you've been kind enough to be a supporter and enthusiast of what I do at Rhythm Changes, which I thank you for, and I'm appreciative of, and we've exchanged some thoughts about certain ideas, right? And
Sure.
I end up thinking a lot about audience development, right? Because those are the kind of things that I have to talk about with my friends, and that we have to figure out if we're trying to do something. How do we get people out to things, and how do we get audiences for our recordings, etc., right? But there's unique challenges in this area that you face because of the genre that you operate in, that other people don't have to deal with all the time, because your audience is of a certain age and then they're not, because they'll be older, and then what you're doing doesn't apply to them anymore. And however, like, there's a silver lining to it as well, where, you know, just because you made certain material in 2004, you know, in theory, if you feel like that material still stands up, like, it can still come out. Like, there are these songs that you've been playing in your sets for however long and they still work, right?
Yeah.
But there is this challenge of, like, you don't get to have kind of career-long fans the way that other performers in other genres do. Like, how do you reckon with this? What do we think about this?
Yeah, it's a very, I think that it is particularly unique to kids music, where you have fans. Like, kids as fans are amazing too, because they're like rabid fans, you know what I mean? If they get into your music, they become obsessive fans. Like, that's all they want to listen to, for instance, which is amazing, and I appreciate that very much. But then, of course, they do grow up. So I find, generally speaking, I have roughly like 4 to 5 years of prime time where kids are really big fans, and then that extends a little bit longer in the schools and the education side of what I do. Usually that goes definitely through the primary grades still as well. But yeah, it's something that it presents a challenge, and it also presents unique opportunities. The challenge is that you're constantly having to kind of like engage and recruit new fans as your older ones kind of age out. This has been a real challenge because of COVID too, and by not being out there performing, that's always the best way to kind of build your fan base, I find, is just getting out and performing.
So maybe there's like a certain age cohort, a couple of years, where not as many people came in as some of the other years because of that.
Definitely, I think so. And it does feel interesting right now to be kind of diving back in and performing and looking at like my mailing list and stuff like that, and being like, how many of these people are still going to engage with this new music and that kind of thing. But then, like you say, a lot of these songs are brand new. Like, they're brand new over and over again for these audiences. So, and I have a huge catalog of music. So I don't know. I think about how I can share these songs and videos and everything with new audiences. I think about it all the time.
Yeah.
And then one other way to look at it, and this is something that I'm trying to be very mindful in my approach to like sort of building a fan base, is thinking about educators as a fan base as opposed to the kids in particular. And I think, and this is what we've really been trying to do, Sika and I, with this Wille Sika, this new French project, is, okay, let's focus maybe even more so on teachers as the audience and the fan base. And then you have potential to have those fans be fans for maybe decades as opposed to 5 years.
So smart.
And so I'm definitely kind of shifting. The CBC Kids thing is over now. Like, I'm not on there anymore, and that really continued to drive me to the kind of younger kids market. And now I'm making sort of a mindful shift towards slightly older kids, but like school age kids, but also their teachers. And so I think if we can create really good quality content that is unique and that is very user friendly and super fun and engaging, track. So that's where I'm at with that right now.
Yeah, it's such a smart answer to that question, to change to targeting teachers too, because then there's a layer between you and the kids that kind of sifts through the time problem where they are handling an intake of new people every time, and if they are using your stuff, then they can continue to bring it to new people for you. So
that's right.
Really,
well, and kids, 4-year-olds aren't the ones that are choosing what's being played on Spotify.
No.
You know what I mean? It's not like, it's different. When there were CDs and kids had CDs, you get in the car, the kid's like, I want to hear Will's Jams. I want to hear Will's Jams. But now it's on Spotify. It's you don't have that. It's much more. I guess
it's
the
like
parents
disintermediated or whatever.
Yeah. There's like it's like a step removed, which I think is
or it's intermediated. There's a thing in the middle.
That's right. That's right. More so than there was, I think. So I don't know. It's interesting. It's always changing. That's the thing about this industry. It's never been changing faster.
You've seen several changes just in your run of all your solo albums. Yeah. And I almost wonder if there's like, now we're just getting into more ideas and stuff on that. It's like if it's kind of like it ends up being like a barbell strategy where there's two very different things that you're doing on different ends, and one of them is the Arts IQ thing where like it's very kind of from a product standpoint, you would say like business to business or like not direct to customers or whatever, but it's like it's designed for other people who are running their operation, like for the education system, for them to put to use, and it's sold to them in a certain way and it's packaged to them in a certain way. Then there's the opposite of that would be your songs, because children's performers still pitch to Spotify editorial playlists and try and get on the playlist, and YouTube for kids and that kind of thing too. So the other end is you just being played on there directly to people, right? But it's almost like just like you're repurposing like and you're making a library of content for the schools. There's another thing where like every time there's like a new kind of social format or something, like short videos and TikToks and YouTube shorts in that world or whatever comes after that, it's like on one end there's creating stuff that is super tailored for teachers, but on the other end it's like taking your huge library of stuff and figuring out how to feed it into that, and like that could expose you to millions of different social accounts and stuff that would never come from exclusive content on Arts IQ, right? And they would add up to something interesting together, but they're two completely different areas that you would have to pay attention to, so it's hard.
It is hard to know. It's hard to, I mean, even now thinking about my merch or whatever I'm doing there, I don't have CDs anymore. I've sold out the last of them.
Nice.
And so I'm thinking like, what do I do next? What's the next thing there? So, and honestly, I think about Arts IQ now as like a merch item or that kind of thing. Like you think about it in that way, and but yeah, it's always changing. And for me, what it always comes down to in terms of doing music for kids as a way to support my family, like as a legitimate career, it's really comes down to the live performance and having a really good show, and that's I mean, I think in most music now it's live performance where you make a living. And it's certainly been that way for me all through my career. And while there have been other things that have, been revenue sources or whatever that have kind of accompanied that, it's always the live performance. And so, putting on a good show, that's the best thing you can do. And that's how you build your fans. That's how you get people excited about it. And that's honestly my favorite part of the whole thing is the live performance. So just talking about it, I'm like, I can't wait till my next show.
Till your next. Yeah. Two quick things to end on here. One, when this goes to air, we're going to be getting into the Christmas holiday season almost. Like, what do you do around Christmas time? I'm thinking about when you perform. And at first I thought, oh, it must be really seasonal around the school year from September to June. And then I'm like, well, probably not, because then there's still lots of summer outdoor events, municipal events and festivals where there's a need for kids entertainment at those things as well. So it's probably year round. But like, is there any certain kind of Christmas thing that you get into?
I mean, yeah, so between now and Christmas, I've got a couple school tours, one on the island, one in Coquitlam. And then other than that, it's a lot of private sort of corporate Christmas parties, family Christmas parties. We're doing a whole bunch of them this year. A number of them are people that book me every single year. We just have so much fun. They didn't for the last 2 years. I'm so glad to be back doing these events. Again, yeah. And they're super fun. Like, it's just, I don't know. I feel like my band is really perfect for those events because it's a party. You know, when we do our show, it's different than what I do in the schools. In the schools, it's like I'm managing my audience. But in those like party environments or festival environments, it's just, we just bring out all the high energy hits and have fun. We're performing at the Hollywood Theatre in Vancouver. We're opening for the Christmas movie that they're showing. And that's like mid-December, I think. I can't remember the date exactly. But I'm very excited because that's a theater I used to go to all the time as a kid. And now it's just like this incredible music venue. So that should be a lot of fun.
Nice. Now, my last thing that I was going to ask you about that I forgot to ask earlier was, it can't be long enough yet that you have done what I would have no doubt that somebody like Fred Penner would have, where you now have parents who were fans of you when they were kids, right?
I hope not. But you know, it might not be that far away. I mean, I've been I think about, so before I took on music as a career, I was teaching and I taught K-7, I taught music. And so some of those kids are adults and could certainly be having kids of their own now. I don't know if they are or not, but yeah, as far as the kids that are fans, not yet, but it's those types of things that give me a lot of hope for a continued sort of longevity of my career is, that sort of follows from this idea that your fans grow out of your music, but they never forget. Like when you're a kid and you're a fan of an artist or whatever, and then you grow up, but you always remember those songs. They're like ingrained in your very being. So I'm sure there will be some kids that grow up, and who knows when it's going to happen. I can't wait when some dad or some mom comes up and is like, I still remember when you played Trikers at my preschool fundraiser or whatever, you know, I don't know what it is, but something like that. And now my kids are here. So I certainly intend to be around at least long enough to do that.
That's awesome. That's a great place to wrap it up. Thanks, Will. That was so much fun. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Will. I had a great time.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Rhythm Changes podcast. If you enjoyed it, become a member for free today at rhythmchanges.ca. Start getting the free weekly articles so you can enjoy a great artist, event, or recording. Every week on Tuesday mornings by email, hundreds of fans in our community are getting it, and you should too if you're not already. Become a member for free today at rhythmchanges.ca. Thanks again. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and we will catch you next time on the next episode of the Rhythm Changes podcast.